All right, today we're looking at business and its environment. Our objective would be to get an understanding of what business environment is, know about internal environment of business, external environment, business ethics, the concept of corporate social responsibility. So these issues will actually engage our mind for the next 1 hour to 2 hours. So for every business organization, your activities will normally be influenced by certain forces. All right. The environment within which you operate, and there are some variables, some factors that are likely to influence your ability to be able to make the money or the profits that you were seeking for as a business organization. So it's very, very important to know and understand these variables and how likely they are likely to influence or impact on the operations of the business. So business environment refers to the forces that have the potential to influence and are influenced by the business organization. So as much as these forces or these factors can impact on the business organization can also position itself in such a way that it has the ability to impact on these factors. All right. And this brings the idea of the fact that a business is to be seen as an open system. So a business continually interacts with its environment. It is not a closed system. So a closed system is normally a system that doesn't require any input from its environment and doesn't actually send any output. It kind of circulates or rotates within itself. There is no interaction with any environment at all. But that is not the case of a business organization. Every business organization operates as an open system. You will require certain inputs from the environment. And after you've processed them into outputs, you then have to send these outputs in the form of either products or services to the environment. Okay, so that makes a business, every business that you are operating, an open system. You need to be conscious of your interaction with your environment. All right. So what are the features of this business environment? These forces, these factors that we said, have the ability to influence a business, and a business as well can influence these factors. What are the characteristics of this business environment as a whole? First and foremost, we have to know that the business environment is dynamic in nature. So just for the sake of example, I should be naming some of the forces or factors that form part of the business environment. All right. So if you take the economic environment, for example, you have issues like inflation rate, interest rate, exchange rate. These variables are not constant. They are not static. Okay. Depending upon the production level and how the general economy is, that determines how these factors are likely to behave. So inflation rates at one point in time could be very high. And if the economy is actually doing well, it could also be low. If you pick exchange rate, it's the same thing. If we produce more and export more and earn more foreign currency, it has the tendency of stabilizing the local currency and therefore making the local currency stronger. The reverse is also the case when we don't produce much locally. All right. So these variables are not constant. They are dynamic in nature. So the business environment as a whole is dynamic. Very close to that point is the fact that there is uncertainty in the environment. It is very, very difficult to predict what is going to happen. As I indicated, it is likely based on how an economy is managed. Okay. And because it's left with, for our part of the world, in our part of the world, our economy is not just even left in the hands of how efficient the managers or the politicians will be able to manage the economy, but it's also vulnerable to external factors. Okay, whatever happened in the global world has the tendency of influencing how our economy actually works. All right, but largely, you cannot predict how well the economy will be managed and therefore it will be difficult to predict how well some factors like inflation, like interest rates, like GDP, and so on and so forth will perform. Okay, so they are not predictable. If you even pick the social environment, fashion, for example, keeps changing. The taste and preferences of people keep changing. So the external environment is also characterized by a high level of uncertainty. Then the next point is relativity. Okay, it differs from one country to another, and then from one industry to the other. So the external forces or the forces, the business environment, the factors that makes up this business environment, they may sound the same. If you mention inflation, if you go to inflation, if you go to UK, you'll have inflation there. If you go to Togo, you have interest rates there. If you go to India, you'll have issues about exchange rates there. Okay, but these countries that I've mentioned, the names might sound the same, but their impacts and weights aren't the same. All right. For example, it would be unthinkable in the UK to be thinking about inflation rate of, say, 10%. All right. When it hits 2%, 4%, it is something very, very huge. But come to Ghana right now, we are hovering around 40-something percent as the interest rate in this country. So it's the names sound the same, interest rates, it sounds the same, inflation rate, but the magnitude and the impact of these variables are not the same. They vary across countries. All right. They also vary across industries. And the next point will help us to understand it very well. So it could be the same inflation, but how it will impact one industry might not be the same as the other industry. So that brings us to the other characteristics of the business environment. It is multifaceted. What it means is that the same variable might provide opportunity for some industry or some stakeholders. And the same variable happening in an economy can pose a threat to other stakeholders in the same industry. All right. If you take the global economy, and normally I use COVID, the recent COVID that occurred as an example. For most businesses in the hospitality industry, it was a major blow. Okay, people were afraid of going out, going to restaurants, going to hotels, and all that, because you wouldn't know where you are likely to contract this disease. Okay, so it was a major blow, and it wasn't just the hospitality industry. The economy generally came to a halt. There was no importing, no exporting, and almost everything was crumbling down globally. So for most businesses, COVID and its emergence was a big blow to these businesses. But at the same time, the same variable that occurred, having both health and economic implications, was a major advantage to other industries as well. All right. If you take telecommunication industries, and largely companies or businesses that were doing the activities online, they made a lot of money. Why? Because people couldn't literally move. They had to rely on the internet to be able to get things done. Okay, so Netflix in Ghana, in our context, if you take the telecos, MTN, and all other companies that are into telecommunication, the sale of data, made a lot of money because people were at home. If you're at home, probably you need to be watching some movies. If you need anything, probably you have to be making calls and all that. So the same incident COVID that brought a lot of havoc to some businesses and some industry also provided opportunity for other businesses and industries. Okay, so that's the nature of the business environment. It is multifaceted. So you just always have to understand how a particular variable is working or impacting your industry to be able to deal with it well. You don't have to assume that something that is occurring in the environment will be a threat or opportunity for all businesses or companies in the industry. Okay. Importance of business environment. Why is it important as a business person to understand your business environment, to know the forces that has the tendency of influencing your business? First and foremost, it provides opportunity to know the direction of growth in the industry. Okay, so it enables organizations to identify possible areas for growth and expansion. If you pay attention to the business environment, that is where opportunities might emanate. Okay, if you just pick a basic thing like budget statements of government, most of the time, the budget statement will normally indicate where the priority areas of the government in terms of where they are likely to invest in. And if you're a business person, you have some dealings with the government, for example, you are a contractor, it might makes a lot of business sense to position yourself to be able to benefit from the provisions in the annual budget provisions, the annual budgets that makes provisions for certain areas. Okay, in Ghana, the recent times, the focus of government has been on free SHS. And what that means is that if you were a contractor and you could negotiate with the politicians responsible for some of these activities going on as far as free SHS is concerned, it is possible that you will position yourself well to be able to take advantage of these opportunities in the environment. Okay, so in the environment, if you understand your business environment, it will help you to know where the opportunities are to be able to expand and grow your business. If you take general stuff like the taste and preferences of people, the new trends in fashion, the belief systems that are coming up and so on and so forth. All of those things provide opportunities for you to be able to expand and grow your business. So it is very, very important to be able to understand your environment as a businessman, because out of that environment, you get to know the various opportunities that might be available for you to grow your business. All right. Then the other one is building corporate image. So businesses that seek to understand the environment become sensitive to environmental concerns within which they work and may respond to them accordingly. All right. So if you understand or pay attention to your environment, the environment also includes the community within which you are operating, and you'll get to know what is really happening there, what their needs are, what their problems are, and that can help you to be able to address these problems. Okay, in our earlier lecture, we spoke about the concept of corporate social responsibility, where the idea, and today we'll be talking about it as well, the idea of a business, even though it's to make profit, as the business grows, it must look beyond just profit making and be thinking about how it will impact upon the society, on the society that provided them with the inputs and resources for them to be successful. Okay, and the only way to get to know what society needs is when you understand the environment within which you are operating. All right, once again, if we go back to our example of COVID, some beverage, alcoholic companies, beverage producing companies, when COVID came, decided to change their processes to be able to produce hand sanitizers, because at that point in time, that was what society needed. And that really boosted the image of that particular company. Okay, so if you get to know what is happening in your business environment, it will help you to be able to address the needs in the environment. And among other things, apart from making money out of that, you can also bolster or improve the image, the corporate image of your company or organization. Okay, next point is that it helps a business to cope with competition. Right, your ability to know what is happening in your industry is based on your appreciation of your business environment. All your competitors, your immediate rivals are key components of the business environment. So if you pay attention to your business environment, you know the strategic moves that your rivals are likely to make, the markets they want to go into, the strategies they are thinking about employing, and so on and so forth. And that can help you to position yourself well as a business in order to counter some of these competitive moves of your rivals. Okay, but if you don't pay attention to your business environment, a lot of these strategic moves are likely to take you by surprise and may lead to the collapse or the shrinking of your business activities. Then the other important reason why you need to study your business environment as a business person is what is known as the first mover advantage. Okay, so it's related to the idea of taking advantage of opportunities. There are opportunities, and the opportunities will normally be found in the environment of a business. So if you pay attention to your environment, particularly your external environment, it will help you to know the opportunities that are there. But knowing is different from being able to take advantage of that, okay? But to be able to take advantage of that, you should have known that. You should have known that that particular opportunity exists. So if you understand your business environment, it also gives you the edge to be the first mover, to be the first company or business to take advantage of that particular opportunity. Okay, if you position yourself well, develop better connections and linkages with suppliers, with distributors, with retailers, build good customer loyalty. In the long run, because you are the first to establish in that particular business or take advantage of that opportunity, you are likely to profit a lot financially than people that will enter into the market later. Okay. Then the last one, close to the idea of opportunity, is also the fact that a proper understanding of your business environment helps you to identify the threats that are likely to face your business. So the external environment normally will let you know whether there are some opportunities coming up or some threats that you have to be mindful of. So a proper understanding of the business helps you to know these two things. What are the opportunities that I can ride on in order to expand and grow my business? And what are the threats that I have to be cautious of in order to ensure that my business will not collapse? So an understanding of the business environment will help you to position yourself very well. Okay, so we have types of this environment that we're talking about, and I've given a hint of these types. Largely, we have two major types. Okay, we have the internal environment of the business, then we have the external environment of the business. But the external environment of the business is also subdivided into two. We can have what is known as the micro environment, and we have the macro environment. Okay, so next slide will be explaining these concepts or these types of environment. So we're starting with the internal environment. It refers to the forces within the business that affect and are affected by the business. So basically, as the name suggests, there are forces, there are factors within an organization that can influence or impact on the organization. And the organization or the business also has the ability to influence these factors. Okay, so largely, the way to understand it is to pay attention to the word internal. There are things that are within the organization, and managers normally have some level of control over this variable. So they are controllable. There are things within an organization that if you're an astute manager, you should be able to control them to the benefit of your organization. Okay, so let's look at some of the factors that are within an organization or that makes up the internal environment of a business. So they include, we're using the acronym 7 M's for them. There could be other issues within all of the M's, but for easy understanding, if you pay attention to the M's, we should be able to remember this stuff. So we have the mission and vision to be one critical force or factor in an organization that an organization can use to achieve and become very productive. Okay, so mission and vision statements are one of the internal forces or internal factors in the internal environment of the business. Then we have the management structure and nature. The nature and structure of the management of a business is an important factor in the internal environment of a business. Then we have man and money. So man here stands for human resources, all right? We're using man just to help you or help ourselves understand the 7 M's that we spoke about. But man stands for the human resources within the organization. Okay, they are important internal environmental factors that can be used to help an organization to succeed. Money here stands for financial resources. Okay, very, very important resource internally that can help an organization. Then we have machines and equipment, so machinery. We have marketing resources. Then we have miscellaneous factors like the culture, the research and development, the value systems of an organization. All right. So if you're a business person, we'll be talking much deeper into this. Don't play with the culture that you develop within your organization. All right. That will tell everybody how they should behave within the organization. Don't play with the value systems that you create in an organization, because it signals to you, it sends signals to everybody within the organization what is important and what is not important. So it's important. They are important internal factors that business managers must pay attention to. All right. So let's do some detailed explanation here. Vision and mission statements. So vision can be defined as a mental picture of a possible and desirable future state of the organization. So it's an internal environmental force. The vision creates the mental picture of where the organization wants to be in the future. All right. And people, even as individuals, we need personal vision statements to stay motivated. So if you want employees to know the direction of the organization, the aspirations of the organization, and therefore how they can commit to that, it is very, very important that you have a very motivating and captivating vision statement to get people to buy into the vision of that particular organization. All right. If you operate in a business and you have no vision statement, people don't know why they should get up every morning and come to work in the first place. So it's very, very important that an organization should have a very well-crafted vision statement. All right. So that goes with your mission statement. A mission is the purpose or reason for an organization's existence. It tells us the current business or what the firm is providing to society. So they normally move together. Vision statement is, where do I want to be in the future? How do I want to position myself in the future? Mission statement addresses the question, what am I doing now in order to be able to meet this vision that I have as an organization? So mission statement is your real purpose now. What are you really engaging? What are you really doing as a business organization? Once again, the motivational factor becomes very important in the mission statement. People should be able to look at themselves, the competencies that they have, the abilities that they have, and then make a decision that based on the mission statement of this company, this is an organization that fits, that I can fit in based on what I want to do with my life. So it's very, very important that there is some clarity with regards to the vision and mission statement of an organization. All right, so let's look at some benefits of having clear mission and vision statement. First, it ensures there is unanimity of purpose. Everybody in the organization, once we have our mission and vision statement clearly stated, then we know the purpose. Everybody within the organization knows the reason why the organization is in existence. And so there's unanimity of purpose. All right. To provide a basis or standard for allocating organizational resources. So once we get to know our vision, we know our mission, then clearly we know why the organization is in existence. And therefore we know where we should be allocating our resources to. Okay. If we send in resources or allocating resources into areas that are not in our mission statement, that clearly shows some form of misapplication of the resources of the organization. So it tells us, if we state that we are going to get into car manufacturing or car business, then every decision there in the organization must be connected to the manufacturing of cars, and so on and so on. This is just an example. If it is an educational institution, then every decision there must be tailored towards providing education to the very best to whoever will be coming to patronize the service of that particular organization. All right. These variables, clear vision and mission statement, establish a general tone organizational climate. So basically it's related to purpose. It establishes generally what the organization is about. Okay, if you go to a bank, normally the environments will not differ. Whether you're going to Zenith Bank, you're going to Eco Bank, even though they are different banks, generally you get a sense that you are in a bank. The same explanation goes for, say, going to a hospital. No matter the type of hospital, you just get a sense of how things are done within the organization that I am in a hospital. Later on, we'll go into details with regards to this particular point. All right. So the vision and mission statement will serve a general tone as the major reason for the existence of that particular organization. So everybody gets to know. Here we are in a hospital, here you are in a university, and generally that general climate will have some framing of mind with regards to what is expected of you, either as an employee or as a customer or any type of stakeholder at all. All right. Next point is to serve as a focal point for individuals to identify with the organization's purpose and direction. That is very, very important. Okay, so people don't just apply for a job because they want to work, but they can look at their personal interests, they can look at their own skills and abilities and knowledge, and then apply or seek for jobs that are in line with this KSAs that they have. Okay, their knowledge, their skills, and their abilities. They can apply for jobs that are in line with that. How do they get to know? They will get to know by studying the mission and vision statements of the organizations that they want to work for. Okay, so if you get to know, then you know that this organization, that if I go into, for example, if I apply to become a lecturer at the university, then obviously I should be somebody who is interested in teaching and developing the potentials of students. All right. So I shouldn't come into the organization and be thinking about something else apart from education and helping developing talents and building the knowledge of other people. Okay, so it helps individuals know that to direct their interests towards the organization's purpose and direction. Once I apply to work at a bank, I should know the main thing that a bank stands for. If I apply to join a hospital, I should have an idea of the main thing that the organization, as far as a hospital is concerned, it stands for. And therefore, how I'm going to conduct my activities to be in line with the organization's purpose and direction. Okay. To facilitate, the next point is that they help facilitate the translation of objectives into a working structure involving the assignment of tasks. All right, so if we get to know the vision and we know the mission of the organization, that will help us to know how to structure the entire organization to the very basic unit of the things that people should be doing in the organization. All right, the departments that you'll find in various organizations are normally based on the vision statement of those organizations. Okay, once again, if you go take our previous example, if you go to a bank, there will normally be some typical departments that you, for example, you may find, say, they have a Forex, they may have customer service unit, some departments that you expect that for every bank should have. If you go to hospital, you may find OPD, you may find a consultancy room, you get a pharmacy, you find maternity wards, and so many other wards. And all of these departments that they're not because of fun, but because they are connected to the purpose of the organization. All right. So the things that you find people in the hospital doing will not necessarily be the same things that you find people in a bank doing. Why? Because the mission and vision statements of hospitals are radically different from the vision and mission statements of banks. So it helps. The vision and mission statement will help us to know what we are into, and therefore the kind of task and assignment we should be giving to people, because the task must be connected to our mission and what we stand for and what we are doing as an organization. Okay. To translate organizational purposes into measurable objectives. So that is that we want to achieve some vision, but we cannot just be daydreaming. We need mission to help us to be able to achieve the vision. But after we've even set up the mission in terms of what we want to do, we must translate this mission into objectives. And as we keep on achieving the daily, weekly, annual objectives, that will help us to be able to achieve our mission, and attain our mission will help us to be able to achieve our vision statement. So it helps in translating the big vision into measurable objectives that will help us to know the extent to which we're moving towards the vision of the organization. All right. Yes, so that then moves us to the next important internal force, which is the management structure and nature. So management structure deals with composition of a board of directors, information flow, management style, management philosophies. All of this addresses the management structure of the organization, and it's very, very important. Okay, most of the time, if a football team fails to win a particular league, or they are not performing well, they don't sack employees. They will sack the head coach and probably the technical team that is in charge of that team. Why? Because management and leadership is very key. Okay, every other thing is the consequence of the decisions that were made by management or by leadership of a particular organization. So the quality of the management team that we have an organization can greatly influence how well the organization performs. All right, if we hold all the other things constant, you could have all the other things, but if your management team or management structure is weak and bad, that has the tendency of affecting the survival and the profitability of the business organization. Okay, so what are the benefits? Let's run through some of the benefits of having a strong management team. So the first one is business sustainability and longevity. Okay, because they have to daily be making the decisions that will help the business to survive. If you go to the board level, they must determine the direction and the vision of the organization. And then everybody within the organization need to follow this. So if they don't have a clear vision and clear direction for the organization based on the needs of society and the wants of society, it is most likely the business will not survive. Okay, if you take operational managers, even those are the lower level that will ensure that employees do whatever they are supposed to be doing. If they come to work and they don't pay attention, they don't supervise well, or they connive with employees to steal the resources of the organization, it's just a matter of time. The business will not last. The business will collapse. Okay, so business sustainability and longevity relies heavily on the quality of the management team of an organization. All right. Business management teams carry the visions, goals, and objectives of the founder along after the founder is gone. That is very, very important. So if you have a management team, most businesses will normally start with a founder, one person that will start a business. But along the line, it is very, very important to have a management team to support this particular founder or the person that came with the idea of the business. And if you have a solid team, even after the founder is gone, the team is able to continue, because business really should be built on structures. not the personal interests and flair of one individual. So once you have a good management team, it doesn't really matter whether the founder is still around or not. The team should be able to go with the vision, with the ambition of that founder. And that can lead to the longevity thing that we spoke about much earlier. Okay. A good management team gives credibility and good corporate image or reputation. That is also very, very important. For most investors, even on of listed companies, one of the things that they look at beyond the annual financial statements is to pay attention to the management team of the company. Okay, because at the long run, how well, not just the immediate, how well a company will be performing is based on the quality of the management team. So for shareholders, they will pay attention to the management team. Creditors will pay attention to the management team, those that will give money to the organization, because it's really the guarantee that you have is largely based on the type of managers that are in charge of the organization. If they are good at what they do, you have somewhat a guarantee that the monies that you've invested in that business, you are likely to get some returns and your capital or your money back. So it's very, very important to have a good management team because they provide credibility. They help in bolstering the image and reputation of business organizations. All right. So closely related to that, raising funds or capital for a business is easier if you have a team on the ground. So if you have a good management team, based on my earlier explanation, it is easy for you to raise funds and capital. Okay, because once I know the management team is competent, I know my funds or the money that I've invested will not be wasted. They will use it for what they said they will be using it for. They will get products that are really necessary or needed by customers, and therefore I have some level of guarantee that my money will be paid with interest. So it helps businesses to be able to raise capital. Okay, so this is why also if you are into business right now, you don't just want to operate as a sole proprietor. Because normally if you are just one person, investors and creditors will be scared to invest in your business. What if you even die the next day after they have invested? What is the guarantee that they will get their money back? But if you have a management team in place, the death of just one person cannot spell a doom for an investor. So it's very, very, very important to seek partnership, to have a strong management team behind any business idea that you may have. Okay. Business teams or management teams are the drivers of creativity and innovation. Very, very important. So if you are just one person, your ideas are limited to just you. But if you have a team, then all things being equal, they are more likely to come up with some innovative ideas and creative ideas to help in the growth of the business organization. So it's also very important to have a management team because they will help in promoting creativity and innovation in the organization. Organizations' problems and challenges are easily handled and resolved when you have a business management team. So closely related to my earlier point, if you are just one person, assuming you are a lawyer, all right, okay, lawyer could be versatile a bit because you might be able to have knowledge in several other areas. But if you're an accountant, for example, you may be limited to just accounting stuff, accounting issues. If you were into marketing, just marketing, okay? But the business challenges will normally call for knowledge from diverse areas. If we're a lawyer, for example, it will just be the appreciation of the law in that particular circumstance. But the practicality and the details of what is required will be something that you will not have an idea about, okay? So if you have a team of people with expertise in all of these areas that I've mentioned, you have an accountant in the team, you have a marketing person, you have a lawyer, you have risk management experts, and so on and so forth. It helps you to be able to solve your problems quite easily than just having one person running the business. Okay, so management teams help in solving business problems more easily. A management team helps develop a company strategic plan, goals, vision, and tactically execute such a plan, right? So if you have a team, you could have a well-drafted strategic plan that will state a more realistic vision, mission, objectives, and so on and so forth to help the organization grow. Having a management team reduces workload and eases stress. This is very, very important. If you're currently operating as a sole proprietor, as I indicated, it is about time you start thinking about having a management team in place. Okay, so sole proprietor, you may be able to get all the profits when they do come, but it goes with the cost of your health and the stress that you have to go through. But if you have a team in place, even when you are sick, your team might be able to run the business organization whilst you are away in terms of resting and so on and so forth. So it's important. Management teams will help in reducing the workload and the stress of entrepreneurs and other business managers. Okay. Last one point, with the combined expertise of each member of your team, the team is better positioned to support talented individuals and bring them to the company. So it's a snowball effect. Once a company is doing very well with a very strong team, then it's also very easy to attract other qualified and competent people to want to join the organization. Okay, so if you take example of even football clubs, right? Most of the time, talented players, when they get to their peak, we all know the teams that they want to play for. The teams don't have struggle to attract these people. They have been able to build their reputation, so that for players, they must play in this particular teams or this set of teams to feel that they are fulfilled. Okay, so it so applies to organizations as well. If you build a very solid team and the company is doing well, it serves as a magnet to also to attract very talented and qualified individuals to want to join the organization. Okay. Part of the internal environment is to pay attention to the organizational culture. So important. It is the organizational culture is not tangible object that you can hold in and feel, but it's very key in defining the success or otherwise of a business organization. Okay, so organizational culture is the workplace environment formulated from the interaction among employees in the workplace. Organizational culture is a blend of ideas, customs, traditional practices, company values, and shared meanings that define normal behavior for everyone who works in a company. So I want to pay attention to the normal behavior. Okay, what have you normalized? What have you made your employees and everybody working in the organization to feel that this is the normal way of behavior? All right. If we take basic things like time consciousness, have you established a culture where lateness is the norm or coming to work early is the norm? If we pick customer service, is it normal to just neglect a customer, to talk to a customer in a way and get away with it? Or the norm is that no matter how you find yourself personally, you still have to take time and smile to customers when they come into the business organization. All right. So the things that have been normalized within an organization is what is referred to as the organizational culture. The way of behavior that everybody feels comfortable with is the organizational culture. And it is very, very important that the comfortable with should be in line with what you are doing. All right. If you are in for quality, everybody should be comfortable with working at a high peak of excellence as far as quality is concerned. Okay, if the norm is customer service, then it doesn't really matter your personal state and feelings. You need to establish the comfortable way of dealing with customers in such a way that they feel respected and valued when they come into the organization. So organizational culture, very, very important if you want your business organization to succeed. So there are 4 core components that make up an organizational culture. We have values, all right? What is it that the organization seeks to project? Values and seeks to uphold very high for everybody to know that if we mention this organization, these are our values, all right? Is it professionalism? Is it customer service? Is it excellence? There could be several values, but it is important that the organization has some values that they are projecting. All right. So if these values are maintained over time, they become what we call the norm, the normal way of doing things. If there's excellence that has been established as a norm, if you come in and you cannot match up, you will rather find yourself leaving the organization because that is the norm. That is the standard way of operating in the organization. So it's important for the organization to have values, things that they project to be important for the organization. Okay. All right. Then the other component of a culture is heroes, the heroes of the organization. So here is just a term that stands for either male or female that have championed and done something exceptional within the organization. You want to project these people, you want to keep on saying or telling their stories. And the reason is that you want the existing or current company employees to emulate the heroes, whatever that attitude that they have. If they were creative people, if they had good customer service, you want your employees to imitate the behavior of these heroes in the organization. So you want to project them every day, anytime you get an opportunity for other people within the organization to learn from these particular heroes of the organization. So heroes form an important part of the organizational culture of the organization. It's a way of telling everybody, this is what we value here. This is what we respect here. This is what we cherish here. If you want to be lifted, be like so and so, all right? And so on and so forth, right? Then we have the rites and rituals. Rites and rituals, very important part of the culture of the organization. So within African context, when we hear rites and rituals, we're thinking about sacrificing of goats or human beings or stuff like that. No, within the business context, we're talking about the standard operating procedures of the organization. All right, especially with the rituals. When you come to work, if this transportation company, for example, what are the things that you have to check before you spark or move the car out of the company? All right. So there are things that every morning drivers and mechanics must do before a car or vehicle leaves the premises of a company. That becomes a ritual. That is the way things are supposed to be done. Okay. So any other company, there are some checks that you have to do every morning. All right. You have to probably spark something, check some machine somewhere, and so on and so forth. In some organizations, every Monday, they have meetings where there is a review of the previous week. Others hold such meetings on Fridays to cross-check what has happened over the week and so on and so forth. So it is important that organizations have rituals, all right, and they have rights. Right. So these rights could be the meetings. The rights could be, say, monthly awards or dinner meetings that are normally set up to probably appreciate some hardworking employees for the months or for either semi-annually for the week and so on and so forth. Okay, so organizations must have rights and rituals. They are meant to ingrain or establish the value systems and the traits of the heroes that we've spoken about much earlier, build that within the current employees of the organization. Okay. Then the social network that are promoted within the organization, also important part of the organizational culture. Okay. Is it an organization where you want everybody to be able to interact with everybody within an organization, or you want to create a class system where if you are a subordinate, it is not easy for you to just go to your superior and talk to the person and so on and so forth. Here, it depends on the type of organization and the culture that they want to institute. Okay, if you go to say the military or the police service or any of these security services, they may have some rigid culture in terms of the interaction between lower rank personnel and higher rank personnel. If you are dealing with a normal organization, it is expected that you'll be more open and allow for interactions among various employees within the organization. Okay, so these are the four components, very, very important, of organizational culture: the values that the organization wants to project, the heroes that the organization seeks to project, the rights and rituals, and the social networks work of the organization. So what are the benefits of organizational culture? First, a healthy culture encourages employees to stay motivated and loyal to the management and the organization. Okay, so note that the culture must be healthy in order to encourage the employees to stay motivated. Okay, if you create a culture, the social networks, where some employees feel that they don't belong, all right, within your organization, then they will just come and do the minimum, all right? Yeah, they feel that the organization belongs to some people. They don't belong. So they will basically do the basic minimum that they can do to take their monthly salary. But if you create a culture where everybody feels some organizational identification, they feel that they can identify with their organization, then they'll be motivated to work hard in order to help the organization to succeed. Okay. Some culture promotes healthy competition at the workplace. Once again, pay attention to the word healthy. It shouldn't be so fierce competition, otherwise it can collapse or destroy the company. But there should be a way to also establish some competitiveness among employees of the organization that will encourage them to always seek to work hard in order to achieve some goals or some targets. Okay, so you need to promote collaborations, you need to promote teamwork, but at the same time, you need to find a way to build in them the individual desire to excel within a particular organization. So you have this either monthly or weekly awards that's given to the best worker in most organizations in recent times. At the same time, you need to find a way to balance that with ensuring there will be collaboration and teamwork among employees of our organization. The culture of an organization represents certain predefined policies which guide employees and give them a sense of direction. Okay, so if you establish a very good culture within an organization, you may not need rigid rules because, as we explained much earlier, it becomes a way of life. Okay, if you rely too much on rules and policies, employees will always find a way to beat the rules and the policies of the organization. But if you develop a culture and it becomes the acceptable way of behavior, then it's easy to get them to do what you want, okay, without thinking about policies, without thinking about rules and so on and so forth, because it becomes the norm, the normal way of behaving in the organization. No two organizations can have the same work culture. It is the culture of an organization which makes it distinct from others. So very important. Organizations obtain their identity, among other things, from their culture. So the type of culture that you set in as a manager of your business is very, very important. Make sure it's a healthy culture. It's a culture that is productive and not a culture that is stagnant and not productive. Okay. The work culture unites employees who are otherwise from different backgrounds, families, and have varied attitudes and mentalities. Very, very important. So if you go to any organizational setting, you're dealing with people with varied backgrounds. Okay, they are coming from different families, different tribes, and so on and so forth. So if you allow them to operate by their own standards and culture, things, there won't be harmony in the organization. But if you have an organizational culture that is healthy, then everybody have to let go. They have to let go of their own belief systems, their own way of doing things, and buy into the culture of the organization. All right. And that will help the organization to succeed, instead of allowing people to be dealing with issues based on their personal feelings and background and so on and so forth. Okay. Every employee is clear with his roles and responsibilities and strives hard to accomplish tasks within the desired time frame as per the set guidelines. Okay, so every employee, once we establish a culture, a pattern of behavior, then we all become clear. It's very related to the point that I explained earlier, that if you have a strong culture, you might not even need policies and rules, because everybody gets to know their roles, their responsibility, and they work hard towards the attainment of this particular responsibilities and roles. Disadvantages of organizational culture. So one of the disadvantages of organizational culture is a forceful resistance to change, right? So whilst it may help the organization to get things going, because that is the normal way of behaving, the disadvantage is that it could resist change. Why? Because people are always comfortable with the known. Okay, this is the way we have been doing things. Whenever you call for change, it's normally difficult. It takes a while before people can adjust to change. Okay, so one of the disadvantages of a strong organizational culture is that even when the external environment or the environment is calling for change, there is the tendency to stick to what is known, and that can be a big problem. Okay. The next point is that a strong culture can also act as a barrier to diversity. All right. So once we feel comfortable with the people that we know, have been working with, share the same value system with, then it becomes difficult for we to accept other people when they are coming to the organization. That is the point. All right. So it's difficult for us because we are not sure whether this newcomer is likely to share into our belief systems and our values. And it's far more dangerous if the existing people probably share a similar race or similar gender, and you are coming from a different background. Then the fear becomes more, and they are likely to resist diversity. We want the people who we are currently, because we know how we do things within this particular organization. So it could lead to serve as a barrier to diversity and inclusiveness. Okay. Factors that can affect an organizational culture. So the environment in which the organization operates, that is very, very important, can affect your culture. Okay. So if you operate in an environment where certain values are not cherished, then becomes a problem in perceiving those particular type of culture within that particular organizational environment. Okay, so if you pick companies from the West, generally, time consciousness or timeliness is something that they take for granted, as in it's a norm. You don't have to be pampered. You don't have to be encouraged. If you're working with Germans, you know that particular idea. Time consciousness is just a culture. They don't have to train you to be time conscious. All right. So such companies, if they find themselves in our part of the world where we can give excuses for anything, any excuse at all for coming to work late or submitting assignment late, then it becomes difficult for such company to maintain that culture of time consciousness. It will take some level of difficulty to get everybody on board. So the environment has the tendency of influencing the culture of the organization. If it's a German company, as we were explaining, then it will take a while before they can kind of ingrain or establish that culture in Ghana, okay, among Ghanaian employees. Then the beliefs, values, and norms of employees within the organization. As we said much earlier, what the organizational culture seeks to do is to harmonize, okay? In spite of all your beliefs or your personal values and norms, it is not important. The organizational culture seeks to establish a new standard for everybody, but that is in theory. In reality, people still have their own beliefs. They still hold on to their values and their norms, and that can conflict with the normal or the standard organizational culture that we want to establish. So the beliefs, values, and norms of employees, their personal beliefs and values and norms can influence the culture of the organization. All right. Then the formal and informal leaders who personify the organization's culture. So that is also key. We can have a written culture, but employees will normally be looking at the leaders and how well they are behaving or otherwise. Okay, so we could know that the culture is probably time consciousness on paper, but if the leaders within the organization always report to work late, then it becomes difficult for other employees to buy into that particular culture. So formal and informal leaders can influence the culture of the organization. If they behave in accordance with the culture, it helps in instilling and promoting the culture among employees. If they behave otherwise, then it becomes difficult for employees to buy into the culture of the organization. Okay. The procedures that have to be followed and the behavior expected of the people within the organization. That is very, very important. Whether they will go in accordance with the culture or not, that definitely will affect the culture of the organization. The network of communications, which disseminates the corporate image and culture. All right, so very, very important. If you have an open system form of communication where information disseminates quickly, then it's possible to maintain and keep some image and some culture going. But where information flow is not very fast, then it becomes difficult for people to know what is even happening and much more to want to behave in accordance with what is happening. All right. So communication networks within the organization can affect the culture of the organization. All right. So let's move to the second side of business environment that we can have in an organization. We said we had two major types. So far, we've looked at the internal environment. The next one is the external environment. So there are forces outside of an organization that have significant influence over the survival and growth of the business. So there are also forces, but they occur outside of an organization. They tend to have significant influence on the survival and growth of the organization. But unlike the internal environment, these forces are normally uncontrollable. Okay, they are not within the influence and control of the management of the organization. All right. They may be impacting the organization directly or indirectly. And as you might have realized in my earlier explanations, it is from this environment that you are likely to see or identify the opportunities and the threats that are likely to be confronting a business organization. So the external environment helps us to know the opportunities and the threats within the organization. Okay. But an external environment is subdivided into two. If you remember the diagram, we said we had the micro and we had the macro environment under the external environment. Okay, so the other names for the micro, for example, is directly interactive or task environment or operating environment. Okay, they are all the same as the micro environment. If you pick the macro environment, it could either be known as indirectly interactive or the general environment of the business. Okay, so let's look at the micro environment. It tends to have it has direct bearings on the operations of the business. So if you pick the micro environment, they tend to have direct and more immediate impact on the business. Examples are customers, your customers, suppliers, competitors, employees, etc. Their decisions and so on and so forth tends to have an immediate and direct impact on the business. If we take customers, their decision not to buy from you, for example, will directly affect your sales revenue, your profits, and that will either spell your doom as a business or help you to be able to make more profit. Okay, if you pick suppliers, their decision to increase the price of the inputs will have a direct implication on your cost of production and therefore how much you can sell and how much profit you can make. So in this environment, that is why they are called directly interactive. They tend to have a direct impact on the performance of the business organization if there are any changes in that type of environment. Okay. Then we have the indirect or the macro environment. So it has equal impact on all firms within the industry or a country. So they also tend to have some impact on the business, but their impact are indirect. Sometimes they are general issues. That's why they are called general environment. There are general things happening in the external environment that impacts equally on all businesses, okay? But as a strategist or as a business person, a student studying business management, it's important for you to know about this environment also, because the impact, even though it's general, they also tend to have an impact on the business organization. They are usually referred to as the SLEP factors or the pest or pestle factors. These are acronyms of what these forces or this variable stands for. Okay. So the first is the social environment. So the variables that affect this include the demographics. So the age, income, gender, etc. This can affect or influence your business organization. If you pick, say, income, and we narrow it down to disposable income, it is normally the money that people can spend with, okay? And all things being equal, the more the disposable income that people have, the higher the chances that they will be buying goods and services. If there is inflation and they cannot get income and so on and so forth, then it's obvious that they are not likely to be buying your product. But we're explaining this within the context of the demographics, right? So if you want to be in business, one of the areas you have to pay attention to is the demographic data of wherever you want to establish your business organization. Okay, we have issues like age. If you have more of the youth there, that should tell you the type of products or services you should be selling. If you have more aged people there, you need to be asking yourself, what are the needs of the aged? And that should tell you the type of business you should be thinking about establishing. If you have more male or more female, that should tell you what you should be selling, okay? Because that will influence the kind of demand that you can get from that particular industry or country. Yeah, so social culture and values, the lifestyle of the people can also determine. Are they people, and normally it has a relationship with the incomes and so on and so forth. Okay, if the disposable income in the general economy is very good, they are likely to have taste for high quality products and so on and so forth. The reverse is an economy where people are struggling to get money to feed. They may be more interested in the very basics of life. So you have to pay attention to the lifestyle, the social and culture and values, and that will tell you the kinds of products you should be selling and where you should be targeting. The legal environment, very, very important also. As a business, you have to know that there are laws, there are rules and regulations governing your activities. Okay, as quiet as they may be somewhere, if you flout any of them, they have the consequences of influencing the survival of your business. So you have to know what you are into. Sometimes the industry itself is regulated. Okay, if you pick the pharmaceutical industry, pharmacy, to establish a pharmacy, there are all kinds of regulations within that industry itself that you have to meet. Okay, before you think about other laws, general laws that you have to comply with. All right, if you want to set up and operate a hotel, I'm certain there should be something that is specific to the hospitality and the hotel industry that you have to meet before you think about the general laws as far as GRA, Ghana Revenue Authority, and other type of acts and so on and so forth are concerned. So it's very, very important to pay attention to the legal environment whenever you want to set up a business. But far more than that also, if you're into international business, you want to pay attention to how well the laws and regulations of the country within which you are going to operate are enforced. Okay, all things being equal, if the they respect or have a good legal regime in place. And the legal regimes is the court systems. They have laws, court systems that actually enforce these laws or give judgments fairly. And then there are structures in place to make sure that there is law and order. Then those environments are likely to be more supportive of your business than a country where rules and regulations, rule of law is not something that is held high. So it's important. Domestically, know the laws and regulations of your industry, of your business, because if you flout any of them, as I said earlier, your business could close down, okay? It could shut down because you didn't comply with some laws. Then we have the almighty economic environment, all right? So the earlier explanation with regards to income can as well fit in here as well. So you need to pay attention to the economic policies because they have an influence. Fiscal policy has more to do with government's decision in terms of the taxation and government spending. Monetary policy normally is within the central banks of a particular country, all right? How they want to regulate the amount of money in circulation, how they want to control interest rates and inflation and so on and so forth are things that you want to pay attention to. As you may notice currently, exchange rate tends to have an immediate and direct impact more than even inflation and interest rates. So you want to pay attention to that environment as well if you find yourself in business, either locally or in international business, all right? It is obvious. If you think inflation goes up, the monetary fiscal people didn't do their work well, and these variables go way where in terms of higher inflation, it then leads to higher interest rate. Higher interest rate means that if you borrow, the cost of paying becomes more. That increases your cost of production. If your cost of production goes up, what it means is that your selling price will go up. If your selling price is up, what it means is that the disposable income of people will not be able to help them to buy more. Or more of the products from you. And so the demand for your products will fall, all right? The reverse is true. If the economy is working well and the people are paid well, if even they are not paid well, but the inflation rate is okay, interest rates are okay, then they tend to have more disposable income to be able to buy your products and services. So it's important locally to pay attention to how the general economy is operating, because ultimately it affects your cost of production, it affects the demand for your products and services. Okay, but the last point is also important. Especially if you want to go into international business, know the economic system that a particular country is operating. All right, so socialism or capitalism, largely all the systems can be divided now into these two, even though socialism is almost also fading, all right? But the whole idea is that for a capitalist system, the government is likely to be more friendly towards entrepreneurship, towards setting up of businesses, and they are likely to help business owners to succeed than a country where they want to practice socialism. Okay, with socialism, the idea is that it is government that must control the economic systems of the country. So the factories, the businesses must be owned by government. And when government makes profit, they then find a way to help the citizenry of the country. So those countries are not supportive of entrepreneurship, okay, if we compare them to capitalist or capitalism. So if you want to do international business, you want to also pay attention to the economic systems of various countries before you start investing in those countries. Then we have the political environments. Yes, so all the major things in the external environment, these guys have the ability to control that, the politicians, all right? So you want to pay attention to the political environment. It is almost connected to the legal environment. Most of the tax issues, whether there will be price controls, import restrictions, labor laws, all of these laws emanate from parliament, right? And it's only when they are signed onto by the government, by the president, they become law, and we have other law enforcement agencies ensuring that these laws are complied with. But largely, the political environment determines this have a greater say in the types of laws that regulate a particular country. Okay. But beyond that, just as I explained the economic system, you also want to pay attention to the political ideologies that are operating in various countries. Are they Democrats? Are they capitalists? Are they socialists? Are they communist states? As I said, all of these have a different opinion, and the type of support that they give to businesses vary. So you don't want to get into a communist state or a socialist state if you want to actually expand and grow your businesses. All right. Those countries and governments feel that it is rather the the government of the day, yes, or the political class that should be in charge of businesses and not individuals and entrepreneurs trying to establish their businesses and so on and so forth. Okay. So it is important you pay attention to the political environment because it can influence just one law. Recently, there was a law increasing the minimum capital requirements of banks, and out of that, many local banks in Ghana had to follow up because they couldn't meet those requirements. So the political environment, yes, it has a relationship with the legal environment, and that can influence how things are done in an organization. Okay, if you take the tax laws, once it's approved in Parliament, it becomes, the bill is approved, it becomes a law. And so you want to pay attention to the political system, political party, the ideologies that they have as far as entrepreneurship and business is concerned. Okay. Then as a business, also, you want to pay attention to your technological environment. So technology refers to the systematic application of scientific knowledge to a practical task. So you want to pay attention to your industry and the type of technology that is currently trending or being used, okay? Because it has a relationship with the quality of the products and services that you can offer. It has a relation with your cost of production. It has some relation with how quickly or otherwise you can deliver your products and services to your clients or customers. So it's important to know the technology. Many businesses have also folded up because they fail to upgrade to understand the trend in this particular environment in order to upgrade their systems to follow suit. So you will need to pay attention to the type of technology that is happening in our industry in order to be on top of things in the industry. Then we have the ecological and fiscal environment. All right. So the environment is becoming very, very important as far as business operations are concerned, with the issue of climate change being a hot burner or top burner issue in most economies and countries. Okay, so you don't want to destroy the environment in your quest to make money. It is important to know how your activities affect the natural environment and how well you can actually minimize the impact of your operations. Okay, this becomes very, very important for businesses that are into extraction of natural resources, whether it's in timber logging, you are into mining, you are into whatever it is that you have a direct confrontation with the external or the natural environment and natural resources. You want to find a way to minimize your impact as much as possible. Okay, for other businesses generally, there are things that we can do as far as the ecological and fiscal environment is concerned. So nowadays, for most organizations, they want to reduce the amount of paper that is being used. Okay, because the papers that we see in our offices are actually trees. All right, so the more of the papers that we use, the higher the likelihood that some tree somewhere is likely to be chopped off. So if you are not even directly in the extractive industry, you want to also operate in such a way that you will minimize your impact on the natural, fiscal, ecological environment. Right, so that fits into this subtopic that we're going to look at under the business environment, which is the concept of corporate social responsibility. All right, so it is an business obligation to maximize its impact, positive impact, and minimize its negative impact on society. So the whole idea is that, yes, you're in business to make money, but in your quest to make money, try to minimize the negative impact that you are likely to have on society. Okay, we just discussed earlier about the ecological, the fiscal environment. If you're into the extractive industry, if you're into mining, and currently Ghana, we're experiencing this galamsey where people in their quest to make money are destroying all our water bodies. All right, the long-term implications could be far higher than any money that we can make from this gold that people are mining from their galamsey activities. So you want to minimize their impact on the community within which you are operating in terms of the negatives. Then you want to try and maximize the positive impact and experiences that people that relate with you will have as a company. So Carol came up with a pyramid that will help business or guide businesses in their quest to be socially responsible. All right. So he argues that normally to start with what is known as the economic responsibility. After the economic responsibility, you move to legal responsibility. You then go to ethical responsibility. Then you move to what is known as the philanthropic expectations or philanthropic responsibility. Okay, so it's a pyramid. You start with economic before you get to legal, before you get to ethical, before you get to philanthropic expectations, and so on and so forth. So let's see what he says or what the pyramid seeks to explain. So economic responsibility, business organization must offer products to satisfy needs at a profit. So that is really the main concern of a business owner if you're about to start your business. You must be seeking to provide a product or service that will satisfy a need. But once again, because it is not a philanthropy that you are or an NGO that you are seeking to run, it is important that you should be able to make some profit in the quest and the process of satisfying the needs of people. Okay. So what if you fail at this stage one, then the issue about CSR doesn't even come in at all. Okay, because you have to actually make some profit before you can think about helping society. But if your product or your service that you are rendering aren't helping you make any form of profit, then we cannot even start talking about other levels or stages of corporate social responsibility. Okay, and this understanding is also very, very important for us not to view business people or owners as evil people. All right. Most of the time when we see business, any business at all starting, sometimes they are even at the struggling stage. The demands of society upon these businesses most of the time isn't realistic because according to Carol, it is important that they satisfy the economic responsibility first before they can move to other forms of responsibilities. So first, as a business, be thinking about a product or a service that can help you to meet the needs of society. And the quest of doing that, if you were to make some profit, that is still okay. All right. Yes. So for businesses that are at their early stages, a business that is able to meet the needs of society whilst making profit can be seen as being socially responsible. All right. The only thing is that they are still at the lower stage or ladder of the pyramid of corporate social responsibility. But the fact that you have been able to identify some needs of society, you have been able to create some product or service to address these needs, that makes you a socially responsible company, even if in the course of doing that, you are able to make some profit out of that. Okay. Really, without this profit motive, no rational human being will get up every morning and be seeking with the interests of other people at heart, trying to solve their problem. So we need a profit aspect to help people to want to sacrifice their time, their energy in helping us to solve the societal problems and needs. All right. Then business moves to the next stage, which is known as the legal responsibility. So businesses are not required to achieve its profit motive, are not just required to achieve its profit motive, they are also required to comply with the laws promulgated by the government. So close to your quest to make some profit, to address some needs, you are also supposed to be doing that whilst respecting and obeying the laws and regulations that have been put in place by the government of the day. Okay, so the first stage, yes, create a product that will meet the needs of society, that will help you to make some money. But in the quest of doing that, don't do that by breaching the law and the laws. So you have to pay attention to your legal responsibility. Once legal responsibility is met, you move to what is known as the ethical responsibility. Businesses are expected to embrace practices accepted or prohibited by society which are not instituted in the law. So at level 2, you are supposed to comply with the law. At stage 3, you are supposed to go beyond the requirements of the law and meet the expectations of society. Okay. So most of the time, laws are good, but you can always find a way to go around the law. Or if you may even be complying with the law, but you are not doing any good, you're simply meeting the minimum requirement or standards that are required. Okay. And the way to view this is issues about payment of wages and salaries. If you were to pay your employees based on minimum wage requirement of any country, you will have complied with the law. Okay, but the truth is that in most countries, if you were to multiply the minimum wage by the 30 days required for employees to work, okay, and you were to pay them that, there is no money that can help them in any way. So if you were to go in by the law, you will have met the requirement of the law, but that doesn't mean you are an ethical employer, because all things being equal, you knew or you know that paying your workers minimum wage will not be something that can help them fulfill their needs. So with ethical responsibility, employers or businesses are supposed to go beyond the requirements of the law and do that which is right. Okay. But according to this pyramid, you have to begin with legal responsibility. You have to meet the requirements of the law before you try to exceed the requirements of the law. All right. Once you have done, you've gotten to and met the requirements of ethical responsibility, you can move to the last stage, which is philanthropic responsibility. It encompasses corporate actions that are in response to society's desire, expectations that businesses are supposed to be good corporate citizens. So at this stage, you are supposed to behave as a good citizen. All right. Even though you are a company or a business, there is a concept of good corporate citizenship that is expected of such companies. All right. So this is the stage where when we mention CSR, most people think what CSR is. All right. So you probably go and set up or build some boreholes somewhere, you build some schools somewhere, you give some money to some hospital somewhere to cater for some, whatever it is, sickness of some patients there. Okay, so that is the last stage actually of corporate social responsibility, where you engage in philanthropic activities. So from this explanation, you might realize, you will get to know that almost every company, once they are obeying the law, all right, they actually creating some product and service to serve the needs of society, are actually socially responsible. It is just that they have not been able to get to the stage where their impact will be directly felt by society. Okay, their impact in terms of donations, in terms of building schools and so on and so forth, have not been realized. And this point is important because most business organizations, in their quest to look good in the eyes of the public, might skip some of these stages and zoom to philanthropic responsibility. Okay, we've heard about stories of companies that are operating illegally, all right, or that are not even ethical. They don't pay their employees well. They don't cater for their employees well. And yet you find them on TV giving charity. You find them on TV giving donations or doing all kinds of projects to project the image of the company. That is not corporate social responsibility. You should have met all of the earlier stages that we've spoken about before you get to stage 4. Okay, but most of the time it's stage 4 that most people know. And so companies want to use that in order to build their brand image or the reputation of the organization. So we have 2 major schools of thought on CSR. We have the economic model, which argues that the main business of an organization or company is to cater for the interests of their shareholders. All right, they have no business at all trying to impress anyone by engaging in CSR activities. Then we have the corporate, that's the free market view or the economic model. Then we have the corporate responsibility view or socioeconomic model, okay, which argues that companies do not only have to seek to cater for the interests of their shareholders, but they have to think about the interests of the larger stakeholders as well. All right. So what are the areas of concern to socially responsible organizations? So they have to pay attention to employee relations. That is always important to me because most of the time, most companies will neglect the needs and concerns of their employees, and yet they are out there doing donations. That is not important. That is not very good, all right? It is important that you have developed the relations of your employees well through the provisions of all manner of things that will make them comfortable. Don't forget, it is out of the sweat and the struggles of these employees that the company can make profit and then go into the charity and the philanthropic activities. So employee relations, an important concern. Then we have the community representing the society as a whole. Then we have financial openness. This is important for other stakeholders such as investors or creditors. All right. So to them, once you prepare and present credible financial statements, that become a form of social responsibility to them. All right. They want to know what is going on. And companies that comply with that requirement are seen to be responsible companies to those type of stakeholders. Then consumer welfare. Okay, so providing quality products, rendering quality service, not any inferior products. Once again, the stories abound of companies that even sell expired products to customers in order to just make profit. That is not proper. If you sell those, they are almost like suicidal drugs to people to take and die. You make a lot of money and end up engaging in philanthropic society. Who are you helping? You've already killed some human beings. Okay, so consumer welfare, thinking about the welfare of consumers is one of the key aspects of our concerns of socially responsible companies. Okay, so we have some arguments against corporate social responsibility. So let's run through some of them quickly. So arguments for social responsibility. One is that to fulfill its legal responsibility. So once you are socially responsible, we want to assume that you will have met the legal responsibility. Okay, so it is actually an error to find a company that is philanthropic and yet illegal. That is not the expectation or the norm. Okay, because you should have met the requirements of the law before you move to the philanthropic stage of corporate social responsibility. But that is the first one, argument for it. Then the second one, to pay back resources it took from society. So all of the resources, money you are making now is based on the resources you had from society. be it the raw materials, be it the people, be it the financial resources that you obtain. All of that is coming from society, and you must pay back to society. To improve the public image of the firm, that is under arguments for social responsibility. And because of this particular point, even companies skip the various stages of corporate social responsibility and want to be seen to be responsible in terms of the philanthropic stage of CSR. Okay. To solve such societal problems they have created. So there are some of the problems is coming from society. So if we take the extractive sector, for example, if they are into mining and so on, or timber, they will have destroyed the environment. So if they were to get into the planting of trees or some other restoration, it is basically because they want to solve the problem that they have created. Okay. To fulfill its responsibilities as citizens in the society. So they are seen as corporate citizens, and they must fulfill that requirement as well. We as individuals are required to be responsible. So why not? Businesses are also supposed to be responsible. To make the environment better by investing in society, and to solve problems before they occur or become too great. So once you become socially responsible, you become more conscious of the environment and the community, and therefore you can help solve problems before they become even big. Arguments against CSR, that the cost of CSR is too great and increase prices too much. Okay, so what happens is that ultimately when you engage in CSR, it's a cost to the organization. All right, and because businesses exist to make profit, they have the way of translating that into the selling prices of their products and services. So society, once again, will be burdened with that. So why not stop your CSR so that you can sell things at reasonable or cheaper prices? All right, so that is one argument against it. It violates the profit maximization objective of setting up a business. We indicated that one of the reasons why businesses are set up is to make profit. So why struggle, sweat, make the profit and give it away? Okay, so it violates the profit maximization principle. Then the third argument is that businesses lack social skills to solve social problems. So businesses are set up for a particular purpose. They have their specific vision and mission. And so they shouldn't bother about things like boreholes and schools and so on and so forth. They don't have the competencies to deal with such problems. So that's the other argument. Then businesses' involvement will make them too powerful. So some school of thought also argues that if businesses are allowed to now start solving societal problems, people will now become dependent on them instead of on politicians or their government. Okay, so if there is some banter between the politician and the business, because businesses are those that are catering and dealing with the needs of the people, they are likely to support the companies against the politician. Okay, so that will make businesses very powerful. Then closely related to that is the last point. Businesses may become less accountable to the public. Once they become powerful, it gets to a stage where they now become less accountable because they know that they are in charge of operations as far as the organization, the company, or whatever the country is concerned. They have the power and they have the influence. Okay. Then we have these three approaches to corporate social responsibility, approaches that some companies adapt. So some companies go by social obligation. All right, so it claims that business only responsibility is to earn profit in the context of the legal framework. So those that go by social obligation, they don't think they have any other thing to do to a country or to their community. They feel that once they have been able to produce some product or create a service that is helping society and making some profit within the requirements of the law, they are socially responsible. And that is acceptable given the pyramid that we've seen. If you are still at the lower or early stages of the industry or your business growth, all right, where you've not made a lot of money, you've not grown, and so on and so forth, you may be thinking about social approach or social obligation approach to CSR. Then we have those that go by social reaction. It refers to an organization's reaction to society's expectation for business behavior that go beyond providing goods and services profitably. So the social reaction goes beyond social obligation. But here, the difference is that they also wait for societal problems and then react to them or seek to solve those problems. All right. The last stage is a social responsiveness. It goes beyond obligation reactions and actively seeks ways to benefit society. So those that use the last approach actively seeks ways to benefit or help society, unlike the reaction where they wait for society to get into trouble before they try to solve it. Those that are responsive actually go out there to find out what the societal problems are and to help address them. Okay. Yes, we have the concept of shareholder and stakeholder. And I think in all of this explanation, we've touched on them. So the shareholder concept says the reason why organization exists is to pursue and promote the interest of shareholders because they have invested their money into the creation of the business. And therefore, businesses must seek to promote the welfare of shareholders. The stakeholder concept argues otherwise, that beyond shareholders, there are also parties or people and entities that are likely to be affected by the operations of the business. And so the organization must look beyond its shareholders and be thinking about the wider stakeholders of the company. Okay. So stakeholders then become a major thing based on a major issue that businesses must bother themselves with based on our explanation of CSR earlier. Okay. So stakeholders refers to those groups or persons that affect or are affected by the business decisions, policies, and operations. All right. So all manner of persons and organizations and entities that are affected by a business's actions or decisions, or that can also influence a business's actions and decisions, are deemed to be stakeholders. However, we have two major types of stakeholders. We have the primary stakeholders and we have secondary stakeholders. Okay, so primary stakeholders are those stakeholders that tends to have an immediate impact, whether they can influence the business directly or the business can influence them more directly. They are known as the primary stakeholders. Okay, so take example like shareholders, customers, employees, suppliers. All right, shareholders, once the company is not making profit, their dividends are in trouble. If the business doesn't comply with some law and the company is shut down, their capital is gone. Okay, customers, see the company produces any poor quality products, sell expiry products, they're in trouble. The reverse is true. If customers choose not to buy from the company cannot survive, and so on and so forth. So the primary stakeholders, as the name suggests, are the immediate stakeholders that tend to have much stronger impacts on the operations of the business organization. Okay, so the secondary stakeholders tends to have less direct impacts, even though they are also stakeholders that will influence the operations of the business organization. So we have civil societies, environmental and animal activists, communities. Depending upon your type of business, your secondary stakeholders could vary. In fact, it gets to the point of the media. All right, all of them have an interest in how a business organization is run. All right, given the importance of stakeholders, it's important for businesses to undertake what is known as stakeholder analysis. And basically is an attempt of an organization to know their stakeholders and the kind of influence that they have in the organization. Okay, so you want to know, and most of the time it's based on resources or power or influence. Power and influence goes together. You want to know the type of stakeholders that if they choose not to support your company, they can indeed bring the company's activities to a halt. All right. And therefore, these are stakeholders that you don't want to play with. There are also stakeholders that you can just take your decision and go and inform them that this is what I want to do, because they are not powerful. Okay, whether in terms of resources or influence, those stakeholders are not powerful. And so even though they are stakeholders, they are not stakeholders that you want to actively engage. They are people that you can just take your decision and choose to inform them what you've done. All right. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our discussions this morning on business environment. I hope you've understood it. Thank you very much.